Hi guys, and welcome to a wrap-up for the Spring into Reading-Athon. This is, I'll try to remember to put the Discord group that I am a part of that does this read-a-thon. I'll try and remember to link that in the description box. In fact, I will write myself a note just real quick. Discord. Okay, so I've got a note for that, so we'll do that. So it was just a read-a-thon. There were a total of 25 prompts. Not all of them were book prompts or reading prompts. So I'll tell you all of the prompts, and I'll tell you what it was completed and how it was completed, whether it was a task or with reading a book. So with this having the 25 prompts, let's go ahead and get into this. So this video is not particularly super long. So prompt number 1 was spring cleaning. Read a book that has been collecting dust on your TBR. So for this one, I went with Once and For All by Sarah Dessen. Really, I could have picked any Sarah Dessen because I think all of her published works now, and I just haven't been reaching for them. And I enjoy Sarah Dessen's books when I pick them up, and I just don't reach them for whatever reason, but I thoroughly enjoy them. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. So this one we're following is, I want to say it's Cassie. No, it's Luna. Cassie's another book that I'll talk about in a minute. So this one we're following Luna. Now it's a kind of a dual timeline. So Luna works, her mother owns a business, and this is it's just Luna and her mom. So it's a single parent situation. And they also have this, Luna's mom has a partner, and I think he's about her mother's age, and he's gay, and you see him as he kind of talks about his own adventures with dating, how he doesn't want to get involved with anyone, but yet he flirts with like this guy at a deli at a grocery store. Excuse me. So it's just real sweet. He is just like a teddy bear of a man, not intimidating, just very sweet. Cinnamon roll, that's the word that people use. He is such a cinnamon roll in this, and definitely the type of person I would love to get to know in person, and just a peach. So this guy, and I forgot his name, and Luna's mom own a wedding planning business. So they help plan weddings, and they go to the venues, and they help make sure things go as smoothly as possible for the family during the wedding. So you're following that, and Luna helps with this. She is a senior in high school, and then it leads into her graduating from high school and into the summer after high school. So you're following that. The modern timeline, there's this guy that enters the business, and he is Luna's age, and he is working for the same people. So he's working with Luna and her mom, and there's a bit of, you can see that chemistry and that little banter between them, just that little bit of tension. It's very subtle, but it is there, and you do pick up on that. And so you're watching obviously the miscommunication. It's a young adult coming of age romance, so you can kind of figure what's going to happen with romances. And what I do see with a lot of young adults, there's a lot of denial and a lot of I don't like you, I hate you, you bug me. So you don't have a lot of as much of the chemistry shown and displayed as you do see in adult books. It's definitely much more animosity and I don't like you type of a thing, and denying your feelings and things like that, even though you're thinking about this person quite a bit. So you do have that a little bit in here. The other timeline, all I will say, and this really affects Luna's perspective with things on the modern day timeline, is that you deal with the previous timeline, the other timeline. It's kind of like a memory where she goes and it's like a flashback, thinks about this guy that she met and fell in love with, and communicated with in a long distance type of relationship. So it was a boyfriend, and all I'll say is there is a school shooting involved, and you're watching all of the fallout from the school shooting. Now, her and her boyfriend went to different schools. The school shooting, I will say this, took place at her boyfriend's school. And so I do know with everything going on in the world, especially with the shooting that took place in Tennessee and everything more recent and and just all of the school shootings in general, this can be a very tough read, and it was difficult to read. So please be aware of that. If you're not ready to read a book that talks about a school shooting, then definitely avoid this book for now, because it is brought up quite a bit, especially during the flashbacks, which is like every couple of chapters or something like that. So, and you have the lead up to it, and then you have everything, and then you have the fallout. So it is very prevalent in this book. But I thoroughly enjoyed this one. I gave this a 4 stars, despite the fact that it was very difficult to read with the school shooting. I thought how the emotions and the rawness of things were handled was done very well. So I enjoyed the book. I enjoyed the writing, and I love Sarah Dessen's writing. So 4 stars. Have never been disappointed by Sarah Dessen's books so far. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. The next prompt is New Beginnings. Read the first book in a series. So this one I borrowed from Kindle Unlimited, and I have since returned it because it's a book that I enjoyed it while I read it, but it's one of those books that it's like, okay, I've read it. I'm going to move on. I don't ever plan on rereading it. Unless I join like a book club or something where that is the book for the month, and I may say, yeah, I don't want to read it, or it's been long enough. Yeah, okay, fine, I'll reread it. And if that's the case, I'll just check it out from the library. It's definitely one of those books where I don't need my own copy. So this one I read, You Had Me at Hola, by Alexis, Daria, and I gave this one 3 stars. So this one has a dual POV, and I don't remember the characters' names. All I know is one's an actress and one's an actor, and they are both Hispanic or Latinx, is the term used in the book for one of them. And they both start out with telenovelas, I think is how it's said, which is basically a Spanish soap opera. So everything's in Spanish, and you have this Hispanic drama and everything with where it takes place. And what are you doing? Oh. And the male lead is trying to break into Hollywood and become more famous, but yet he has this secret that he's very protective of and doesn't want anyone to know about. And of course, Max, no! And then, of course, you have the budding relationship, obviously, with it being a romance between the male lead and the female lead. There is that chemistry and the sexual tension, and then it does get very spicy. They do have sex, and you do see it depicted on the page, and the act of them having sex is depicted. So it does get spicy, and that happens two or three times. And obviously then there's this miscommunication where he has that secret that he doesn't want anybody to know about. He doesn't even tell the main female lead that he's attracted to and is having the sexual relationships with, which that kind of bugged me, because this type of a secret I can see when you're first starting to date, and when you're first starting to get to know the person, to not to say anything, but as you get to know them and you're entering into a serious relationship, you definitely need to tell them this particular secret. Because it can be, for some people, it can be a make or break type of a thing. So it definitely was not fair to her to keep it, although you understood where he was coming from and why he wanted to be kept a secret. But it's definitely something that had to be told. And of course, with a romance, you have the conflict and where things are revealed finally, and then there's obviously the resolution. So these two... a lot of the thing with the main female lead is she talks about her family. She does complain quite a bit about her family too. How she's kind of like the black sheep of the family, and other people are more important to certain people and things like that. And so there's miscommunication with the family. So you do have that quite a bit. I'm trying to think... I mean, it's your standard romance, you know. You have the build-up, you have the tension. In this case, you have the sex on the page. And then you have the miscommunication or whatever the conflict is. And then you have the resolution. So it's your standard romance. I checked it out, again, from Kindle Unlimited. I didn't take any notes on it, so I can't really tell you more than that. So that's part of why I say I'm okay with not having my own copy of it, because I'm remembering certain aspects of it, but at the same time, I'm kind of forgetting quite a bit. So The writing was good. I will say it was well written. And I did, my favorite thing of the book was the Spanish words in there. You had a lot. Now, could I tell you the difference between Mexican, Puerto Rican, Guatemalan, or anything where that's a Spanish language? I can't tell you the difference. I can't, but it was fun to hear because I also listened to this one on audiobook. And so that was enjoyable. I do feel like the audiobook was very well done. And I do recommend, especially with the amount of Spanish terminology and words that were in the book, if you struggle with reading any sort of a language, having the audiobook really helped me to hear what it would sound like so that I don't come up with some weird word or say it completely wrong in my mind, where instead of a nice word, it's a bad word, because that can happen. So I really enjoyed listening to the audiobook with that as well. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. Prompt number 3 is wet t-shirt contests. Read a smutty book. You had me at Hola, could definitely count for this one. For this one, I actually am counting an ebook that I have since deleted because I gave it 1 star. I really did not like this book. And that is Through the Magic Sunglasses by Mariia Manko. I just felt like there was a particular decision that was made that put this character on a path that did not need to be on. And I felt like it was definitely a decision that either was not expanded upon, and it should have been. Now, this is a short book. I mean, this is a novella, but I just felt like, so you're following this character as she leaves an abusive relationship. This takes place outside of the United States. The main character ends up in Germany. She's at a party where they get drunk, and she's dancing, and one thing leads to the other, and she ends up outside of the club with all these girls that she doesn't know, this group of girls she doesn't know. This little keychain thing is dropped, and the main character picks it up, and they end up going their separate ways, and the main character still has this little keychain thing, ends up with a voicemail or a message from one of the girls in that group saying, "How dare you, give it back." Well, the main character looks at it, it's a USB, and instead of saying, "Okay, it's your USB, here it is," or "I've left it here, I'm on my way to a different area, but it's here, you can find it here," she ends up keeping it. She plugs it in to her, into a computer, and turns out it's basically these girls having an orgy with a bunch of men, and one of the women, I think, has, if I remember right, a husband that's high in the political realm of things. And of course the girls want their USB back, but for whatever reason, this one girl isn't like, "Well, give me money and I'll give it back because of what's on here. I've seen what's on here." She just puts it in her pocket and takes off. And then obviously this group of girls is chasing her, trying to get it back. And I think that's what bugged me, is it's like, why did she keep it? Why didn't she just leave it and just call it good? Just leave it at that. But I don't know. Computer, stop. Just a lot of the decisions that were made. Anyway, she gets this pair of magic sunglasses at the beginning of the book from a taxi driver, which will help her when she is in danger. Basically, she gets this orange image on the sunglasses when danger is coming her way. It turns red when danger is imminent. And it's a way to kind of keep her safe. I gave it 1 star. I've deleted it. I won this from a contest on Goodreads. And it just was not for me. And the orgy did get explicit. So please be aware of that. It just, how things were handled in that book was, it's just not for me. I'm just going to move on. Okay, prompt number 4 is road trip. Listen to an audiobook. For this one, I went with Have a Holly Haunted Christmas by Lynn Cahoon. This is book number 2.5 in a Kitchen Witch Cozy Mystery series, your standard cozy mystery. Now this one is a little bit different, as in, so Mia she has like a catering business, and she is a witch, and there is this ghost that haunts the school that Mia has converted into her business. And this ghost comes to Mia and says, I need you to find out who murdered me. And it just goes from there. They're trying to figure out what happened to this ghost, and you're just following the little mishaps that happened during their investigation, and then you see the resolution. So it's this, I don't even remember, barely over 100 pages, I think. I can't remember exactly how many pages, but I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I have thoroughly been enjoying this series. This is the first one that, was there a dead body in this one? I can't even remember if there was a dead body, because the primary focus was figuring out what had happened to this ghost. Because the ghost is like, if you don't figure out what's happened to me, then I'm basically ceasing to exist as a ghost. I'm done for never to be able to come back or anything ever again. So Mia and her boyfriend are trying to figure out what's going on. So that's pretty much all I can say about that one without spoiling anything. Because it is such a short story. So let's go, and I read that on ebook, but I also listened to the audiobook version of that, which I've been listening to the audiobook version for all of the books in the Kitchen Witch Cozy Mystery series, and I have thoroughly enjoyed the audiobook. I think the narrator does a great job. Okay, moving on, prompt number 5 is Let It Shine. Elements on the cover. You have wire is not an element, water, fire, earth, and wind. So for this one, I went with Pumpkin Heads by Rainbow Rowell. As you can see, they are laying on the ground, so there's your earth element. This one is fine. It is very much hyped up on YouTube, and I think for me, it's, in my opinion, it's overhyped. I was very disappointed by this. I felt like, again, there were decisions that were made that it's like, this could have gone and been better had this book gone a completely separate path or was handled differently. I ended up giving this one 2 stars. I am going to unhaul this. I have one more wrap up to do, and I don't remember if I had this fit a prompt in the other readathon that I did. But once I get that other one filmed, this is going bye-bye. So you're following these two. They're friends, they're co-workers. They work at this basically fall harvest pumpkin patch place, and they work in a succotash hut. And at the start of the book, they're in something that's not where they normally work. They're helping out with this other unit facility place at this farm, and the main female character is trying to help this guy talk to this girl that he's been crushing on, who happens to work in a separate unit than they do. And so they finally, during their break, they go to this hut where she's supposed to be helping out. Well, she's not there. She was sent to a different hut to help out, so they go to chase her down to the other hut. Well, then she's not there, and so then they go from place to place in this. I just felt like I mean, granted, they're 18. They're going to go off to college. It's their last year helping out at this place. I don't know. I just felt like some of the decisions and comments that were made, I felt were extremely immature. I would have expected more from people that were maybe in middle school. They don't really help out. They just kind of blow off work, which, I mean, that happens with, you know, fine, believable, but it's like how certain situations were handled, I felt was extremely immature for even an 18-year-old. And I don't know, it just, I felt like they could have, because I also wanted to experience this place. I felt like they could have said, you know what, there's enough coverage, let's just blow everything off, rather than say, oh, we're going to help out, but then we're going to leave everyone short again and not finish helping. And it just really bothered me. And I think because of my work ethic, to see how the work ethic was handled in this was very pet peevish to me. Absolutely hated it. And I think that's what really drew it down. You do have buy rep in this, and yeah. Anyway, I mean, that's really all I can say. It's a graphic novel. I've heard Rainbow Rowell talked about a lot. I'm not in any hurry to pick up anything else by this author. Now, granted, I think if I pick something else up by this author, it's going to be a standard novel and not a graphic novel. So I'm willing to try the author again, but I'm not in any big hurry. This just was not for me. yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and move on because I don't know what else to say about that. With it being a graphic novel, there's not much you can say without spoiling a lot of stuff. Moving on, prompt number 6 is stormy weather. Read a book that intimidates you. So this one I read a library book, and this one was Light from Uncommon Stars by Ryka Aoki, or Aoki. I know, I'm sorry, I'm sure I said that wrong. This one is a science fiction. Now, I like science fiction when I read it, but it kind of intimidates me because I don't know how much technology is going to be in it. And a lot of technology stuff just tends to go over my head. So it does science fiction intimidates me because I know it can be in it, but I do enjoy it, the ones that I have read. So why does it still intimidate me? I don't know. Probably because I know the potential of what can be in there. It was fine. I gave it 3 stars, but that's being rounded up because we can't do half stars on Goodreads or even quarter stars. I think I would have ended up giving this like either a 2.5 or a 2.75 star. I felt like it was very jumbled. There were multiple POVs. There wasn't, like you maybe had a paragraph and then there was a space and then it went into someone else's perspective. So there wasn't, like, you had to figure out as you were reading each unit whose POV you were in, and that got confusing at times for me. I liked all the talk of the violin and the emphasis on the music. I did enjoy that. If you do not like stuff with music, then you are definitely going to want to avoid this book because it is so heavily steeped in violin terminology and violin music. That is very heavy. And I think that's part of what lowered it down for me, is not the fact that the music was in there, but the fact that I felt like the science fiction, even though it's classified as a sci-fi, I felt like that was very minor in this book. Very much a backseat, which that's fine, but I wanted the stuff that I would have wanted in the book that I felt like could have been expanded upon was very minimal. There was talk of like these aliens that are now in human form, how they escaped where they're from in the galaxy. I felt like that could have been expanded upon more. There could have been more talk and more stuff that takes place in space. In one of these, you have one of the POVs is Shizuka Satomi. She is basically, she played her violin with a cursed bow, so her soul is damned. You do have a demon that pops up and talks to Shizuka Satomi, and basically he's the one that's in charge of getting her soul when she's damned. In order for Shizuka to, and she's called the Queen of Hell, in order for her to save her own soul, she has to damn 7 violinists to hell by getting them to play with the cursed violin or the cursed bow for the violin. And her current protege, or her current student, his name is Katrina Nguyen, is going to be supposedly the 7th, and you kind of see some stuff go on with that. One of the other things, there was a lot of complaining. Now this one, I have read books with a lot more complaining. This one I do feel like the complaining was stuff that was more understandable because it's stuff that the main character could not do anything about. Katrina Nguyen in this book is one of the other POVs. Katrina is transgender. So this person was born male and is now female. And there's a lot of hate towards Katrina because she is transgender. And so the complaining is about that. You also see Katrina with extremely like rock bottom self-esteem because of how she has been treated as an individual. And you also see like there's this one person that rapes Katrina, knowing that Katrina is transgender. They rape Katrina basically as this is what we're going to do in order for you to pay me rent. This is what's going to be your customer rent. A lot of hatred towards that. And Katrina talks about how it's like she can masturbate in front of a camera, and you do see that depicted on the page, and people will pay her for that, but yet they still belittle her and demean her because she is transgender. So there is a lot of transphobia in this. There's even a bit of homophobia. So there were things, basically, I felt like the science fiction could have been more. I don't want the violin stuff to diminish, really. I don't know. There's something about it that I felt like could have been taken away a little bit, or a little bit more clarity with the different points of views. So I ended up giving it a 2.75, I think is the one that I'm going to settle on. But I did round up to a 3-star. I can see how a lot of people would not like this because of how heavy music-wise it is. I felt like the music overpowered any science fiction. I think that's part of what pulled it down. I liked the music, but I would have liked to see more science fiction elements. Because that was very much on the back burner, very much a very minor thing. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I can say about that. And that was a library book that's since been returned to the library. So let's go ahead and move on. Prompt number 7 is Spring Fashion. Read a book with a beautiful cover. For this one, I selected A Wicked Magic by Sasha Lawrence. This is Sasha's debut book. And I ended up giving this one a 3-star, mostly because I felt like this could have gone darker. You have these kids that find this book, they turn themselves into witches, and I felt like there was a lot of talk of black magic or dark magic, as evil magic is what it is. And I felt like it could have gone darker. Now, granted, this is a YA, so I understand that the author would not maybe have wanted it to go too dark with it being a YA, but I just felt like it could have gone just a little bit darker. And that's the only one reason why it got so low for me, is I just wanted it to go just a little bit darker. Other than that, I liked it. Basically, these 2 girls turn themselves into witches. They do this one spell one day. One of the girls brings her boyfriend, and the boyfriend ends up getting taken by this evil entity. And then you see the fallout, basically all of a sudden, and that was kind of like hitting a brick wall. This happened, all of a sudden there's no friendship anymore. You do have OCD rep in this. You have depression and anxiety as well. You have the cat on this cover's name is Domino. So with witches, generally they have an animal familiar, and Domino is an animal familiar. There's this demon that you also have a cult in this, and the cult leader is supposedly communicating with this demon. It's their god. They're trying to bring this god back, and other people know that this is actually a demon trying to portray himself as this good god when it's obviously a demon. And so now you have people that are trying to stop this cult from doing what they're going to be doing. And again, I just felt like it could have gone a little bit darker with the black magic. It could have gone darker with the cult. So I just felt like it kind of teased the edge of how dark it could actually go. Now, I know it couldn't have gone too much darker with it being a YA, but it definitely could have gone darker. I did like the writing. You also have LGBT in this. And I know that Sasha Lawrence has another book out called, I think it's called The Young Blood, which is, I think it's with vampires. And so I definitely want to get my hands on that book at some point and read that, because I did enjoy Sasha's writing. So I ended up giving it 3 stars, only because, one, it's a debut, and it'll be good to see how the writing style develops as it goes on. There's a lot of potential, but again, I do feel like it could have just gone a little bit darker, and that's what I wanted. I thought it was going to be darker than it was, so I was a little disappointed in that, but that's my own fault. I had to remind myself going in, this is a YA, it's not going to go as dark as I want it. And so that was my own doing. So I was still disappointed in it, but overall it was a good book. So 3 stars. I think if I had to do like a half star on this, it would be a 3.5. So definitely higher up on the 3-star scale. So, okay, moving on. Prompt number 8 is Rewind. Read a past season-a-thon group book or author, and I did not complete this prompt. Prompt number 9 is April Showers. Read a book you think will make you sad. Did not do that one. Prompt number 10 I did do, and this is Luck of the Irish. Read a book with green on the cover. For this one, Matched by Condie. This is a local to me author. I actually just found that out after I read this book. Condie lives just outside of Salt Lake. I don't know, obviously I don't know where, but when I looked online, she lives in Utah. So definitely a local to me author. I found that to be really cool. This is a YA dystopian. In this world, everything is controlled by the government. Like, this is the type of thing that I can see if our government in the United States right now, there's a lot of turmoil and stuff. I feel like this is definitely the type of thing that I could see happening in the future. Now, granted, it's not going to be within the next 5 or 10 years, but within a couple of generations, I can definitely see a country, if not the US, any other country, definitely being in a world like this where, I mean, everything is controlled. You no longer marry for love. You are matched with someone. They could be in a different province, a different state. When you turn, I think it's 17, you are basically matched with who you're going to marry. And this is so that you two, depending on both of your biologies and your personalities and stuff, it's so that you're matched with your ideal partner so that you can procreate and have the highest chance of having healthy kids, is what it is. The government provides you your food. You go to the kitchen and basically the food arrives. I still don't understand how, but through this little portal-like thing or device, the food comes and it's catered to each individual with what each individual needs. The more active the individual, the more calories they're going to have. The less active, the less calories. So they're all at a healthy weight. So the weight is controlled. If it turns out one time you're deficient in vitamin D, well, then your food is going to reflect that by having more vitamin D in it or more calcium or whatever you need. So, and the government heavily regulates that. If the government wants to try and experiment and test to see how maybe starving you just a little bit or reducing your food affects you in certain situations by creating higher stress, they will do that because they control how much you eat. And if you don't finish your food, then that's a cause for the government's concern, and then they're going to investigate. So you have to basically eat everything that's on your plate. And there is a case in this where this person's placed in a high stress situation, and in order to try and increase the stress, they reduce how much food this person eats, and they keep reducing it. It's also heavily controlled by the government saying, instead of, like, as we know, all this music, like all this Britney Spears, Selena Gomez, Hilary Duff, Beyonce, I'm blanking on all these others. I've got like all these artists coming to my face. On all the movies that we know that exist, basically there's 100 films that you can watch and they just kind of rotate. There's only 100 pieces of music you can listen to, and there's only 100 poems that you can listen to, and I'm sure books are controlled as far as only a certain amount that you can read. Everyone dies at a particular age, at a certain age, unless there's some freak accident that the government didn't foresee, but generally that's all controlled with when and how you die as well. No one lives past a certain age, and the rebellion is starting at the end of this book. So basically these characters are allowed to carry around 3 pills, a blue, a green, and a red pill. The green pill, it basically, what happens is when you're starting to have kind of like a panic attack or something similar, you take the green pill and it helps calm you down. Don't know what the blue pill does. I do know what the red pill does. It is explained at the end of the book. I'm not going to say, but the red pill does something. And the other thing that's controlled by the government is your job. You are basically tested with your knowledge and your skills and abilities. Then you're placed, and as you learn, as your skills and abilities grow, it's decided what type of career you're going to have. So you have no choice in this whatsoever. I mean, obviously the only choice that you have is really who your friends are going to be. And even then, I'm kind of wondering if that's even controlled by the government. I don't know. It's just part of the rebellion in this that starts to spike is there's this poetry that's not on the governmental approved 100 list, and it gets shared and people memorize it, and that's a little mini act of rebellion. And you can get in major trouble just for even knowing a piece of poem, even like one little stanza that's not approved by the government. You can get in big trouble. So it's your standard YA dystopian. I loved it. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. Absolutely loved it. And I look forward to continuing on. The next one is called Crossed. This is a trilogy, and the third one is called Reached. So I will be picking up Crossed, hopefully sooner rather than later. Okay, gotta turn my page. All right, prompt number 11 is self-care. Take a day for yourself. This one, I just took one of my days off from work. I had no appointments or anything, and I just laid around all day and read. I didn't force myself to do anything I didn't want to do, and I was like, it's snowing, and now physically I can't go out because my back is so bad. I can't shovel because that would also really wreak with the sciatica that I have that flares up. So I just kind of just stayed in my pajamas and stayed in bed and read all day, and that was so nice. It's nice just to take a day like that and just be lazy. Let yourself be lazy every now and then. Just kind of like a little recharge. Loved it. So that's what I did. Okay, prompt number 12 is Prom Queen. Read a popular book. I did not complete this prompt. Number 13 is to read the group book, which is Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. I did not read that. I think this was like I know it's part of a series, and I don't think this is the first one in that series, and I did not have time to even get to the first one to be able to get to this one. I want to say it's the third one, and I could be wrong on that, but I did not get to this. Okay, prompt number 14, I'm going to go ahead and move on, is Spring Forward. Read the next book in a series. For this one, I read, and this one's up in my room, I read 3 Tainted Teas by Lynn Cahoon. This is book number 3 in a Kitchen Witch mystery series. I talked about this one earlier with Have a Holly Haunted Christmas, which was the novella, number 2.5. So I've already told you about this series. Mia, she lives in Idaho. She's a witch. She has a catering business. In this particular one, there is a dead body, and she inserts herself into the investigation to figure out what happened, who killed this person, and what the motive is. 3 Tainted Teas involves Mia taking on a wedding planning opportunity, and there's a lot of drama with the wedding, and so she's trying to sort things out, and you're just following the mishaps from that, and then obviously as things become resolved. It was fun. I gave this one 4 stars. I am just having fun with this series. It's just really fun. There's not much I can say with that because it's cozy mystery. Everything can be pretty spoiled. So let's go ahead and move on. Prompt number 15 is Love in the Air. Read a romance or a book centered around friendship. This is a book, unfortunately, I will be unhauling, and that is Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute. I do admit I do like Talia Hibbert's writing in her adult. This is the first YA, and it feels flat. So and I think one of the things, teenagers can complain a lot. And I felt like there was a lot of complaining, especially from the main female lead, Celine. I felt like there was a lot more negativity and negative attitudes and complaining and animosity. There was a lot more negative emotion that I did not want to read about. And so because of that, I will be unhauling it. I think if there was more trying to figure things out, yeah, mentioning the negative every now and then, but rather than sitting around and complaining and woe is me, figure out what you can do to fix certain things, if you can even fix certain things. There was a lack of that, in my opinion. Too much of a lack. So I'm not going to be rereading this. I do think the writing was good. There are just certain elements that could have been less, and I felt like there could have been more. So less of the negativity, and I think there could have been more motivation and more moving forward and more problem solving, and that's what I would have wanted to have seen on that. That's why this is getting a 3-star. I like the writing, and I like Talia Hibbert's writing. I just don't like the ratio of the negativity, all the negative feelings compared to the problem-solving aspects. So that's why it's getting a lower star. This one we're following Bradley and Celine. This is a YA romance. This is a friends to enemies to acquaintances to tolerating each other to lovers. So, yeah, they're trying to get this a scholarship. They both want to go, or at least Celine, I don't remember about Brad, but basically wants to go into the legal field and to be a lawyer. I did like there is OCD rep, there is anxiety rep, there's single parent household. And I did like that aspect. I felt like that was done because I can see myself a lot in that. Celine's dad left, and so it's just her mom, and her sister. And a lot of the feelings that Celine felt towards her dad are stuff that I saw in myself growing up, with feeling replaced. And if you can get to a certain point in your life where you're good enough that they will come back and want you in their life again, type of a thing. So I recognize those feelings, and I felt like that was very well done. So bravo to Talia Hibbert for doing that very well and very realistically, because I definitely recognize those feelings that I had when I was growing up, when I would have been Celine's age in this book. So great writing. There was more stuff, that aspects of the book, and that just was not for me. But the writing was definitely well done. So we'll go ahead and move on, because I don't know what else to say about this. So I did like the writing. Some of the certain aspects of the actual plot and story are just not what I like to read about. So let's go ahead and move on. Prompt number 16 is Over the Rainbow. Read a classic or a retelling. Did not do that one. Number 17, Spring Break. Read a book with travel or vacation. Did not do that one. Okay, prompt number 18, refresh your TBR. Get yourself a new book. Well, I bought myself several books, and you will have seen the hauls by now. The main one I did for this one is that I allowed myself to purchase 2 new books, new to me books. These are already out. 2 books by Riley Sager. So I've added 2 more Riley Sager books to my collection, and those are specifically for this. I counted specifically for that prompt. Okay, moving on. Friendship bracelets. Buddy read a book. So this one, I have a group read on Discord. I will link it in the description box. It's called Autism Read. The goal is to read a book that has autism rep. Bonus if it's written by an autistic author. Does not necessarily have to be written by an autistic author. We have one book this year that is not by an autistic author, but the author has, I think it's a nephew or a cousin that is on the autism spectrum. So there is a correlation there, but basically it's to read more books that have autism rep. So it's either going to have the autism rep in the actual book with the character being autistic, or written by an autistic author. So the book for March was On the Edge of Gone. I believe the author is autistic. I've read that. I'm like 99% sure. There's just always that little bit of self-doubt, but I'm 99% sure. So this one we're following the main character. I'm talking about a couple of books, and so I blank on the names. Denise. So Denise is mixed race. She talks a lot about being black and being autistic, and how that came about. One of her special interests is cats. So warning, you do have a lot of cat pet abandonment. Basically, this takes place in Amsterdam, and there's this comet that's going to come that's basically going to end civilization as you know it. So people are trying to go to these shelters. That's where the pet abandonment comes in, because you're only allowed to bring so many things, and the food that is being provided is enough for the people that are going to be in the shelters. They cannot afford to feed people and their pets, just the people. So people are having to abandon their pets. A lot of people take the pets, the cats specifically, because that's what's talked about, take them to the vet to have them being put down to sleep, which is basically being killed, because they don't, especially where it's an indoor cat and it's a house cat, they don't want the cat to suddenly be either killed by the comet, killed by anything after that's going to happen, like an earthquake, a fire, a flood, whatever it is, and have to suffer that where the cat has had everything given to them and they don't know how to hunt for their own food. They don't want the cat to suffer by starving to death. They don't want the cat to have to try to survive from being picked off by a predator and eaten by a predator, and even some of the chance of people trying to survive. They don't want the thought of their pet being killed and eaten by another human. So that is quite talked about in this every now and then. So please be aware of that. That was very unsettling and hard for me to read. I would have liked to have known that going into this book, so I could have been prepared. So that's why I tell you this now. You have transgender rep in this. You have lesbian rep in this. And you're just following Denise as she's autistic, and you're seeing what she has to deal with, how she copes, what she does to help herself calm down, how she finds ways that she can help benefit on this. They end up going, you also have drug addiction in this, and that's talked about as well. So her and her mom end up finding this ship for shelter. They take them in, but because they weren't approved to be on the ship, it's like you're here and then you're out on your own. You're here when the comet hits, and then you've got to go out on your own once we're ready for takeoff into space. And Denise is trying so hard to find a way to be useful despite her autism, of how she can be beneficial to those of the ship to be approved to be on the ship permanently as they go into space. And so you're following as she kind of learns a little bit more about herself, what she can do to benefit people and things like that. You have people that deceive other people. You have Jewish rep in this as well. And one thing I learned in this book is that when someone that you love dies and you're part of and you're Jewish, and I don't remember the term, and I heard someone say it one time, but basically they take a week of mourning to really focus on that person's life. That was interesting. And so to see that rep in there was really cool. So you have a lot of diversity in this for different aspects. The transgender rep is the person that is transgender, I will say, is related to Denise. And so you have some of that. You do have, I don't want to, well, I don't know if I want to say it's transphobia, but misgendering, that's the word I want to look. You do have some misgendering when it comes to the transgender, but I don't think it's done maliciously or with a bad intent. I think it's done when someone is not in the right state of mind. And so so you kind of have to take that into account, in my opinion. But I thoroughly enjoyed this one. I gave this one 4 stars, and I want to read more by this author. And I thought it was really good. So, and I loved that Denise came into her own kind of a coming of age. I do like the coming of age YA books. So I really enjoyed that one. Okay. Prompt number 20 is Women's March. Read a book featuring a strong female protagonist. For this one, I am throwing a book around. I went with Feedback by Mira Grant. This is book number 4 in the Newsflesh series. This is the last book in the series, so I have completed a series. This one is following the same events of book 1. In book 1, you're following, excuse me, the Mason siblings as they follow a Republican candidate running for president. In this one, you're following, I forgot her name. It's a different character, and she's immigrated from Ireland, and she is lesbian. She's in a marriage of convenience. So you have marriage of convenience in this. And I forgot her name. I don't see it on the back. But it's mostly from her perspective. But basically you're following the same events of book 1, except you're following this particular character from Ireland, her partner and her love interest, and then 1 or 2 other people on the team. One of them is non-binary, and you're following them as they follow the Democrat candidate that's running for president. In this world, the common cold is cured, cancer is cured, but there is this virus that when you are over a certain weight threshold and you die, not only human but animals as well, you reanimate into a flesh-eating zombie. And so you have these president candidates. They're on the road to promote their candidacy, trying to run for president, trying to get people to vote for them. And people are trying to throw certain votes or put other people in certain lights, and there's outbreaks, and you're watching people try to survive. So this was interesting. I mean, I can't really say much because the exact same thing of the first book. It's yeah, I mean, they're just going across the country in the United States. In this particular book, they're following the Democrat president, the Democratic nominee, and as they campaign for their presidency, and they're having to deal with zombies and things like that. So it was good. I enjoyed this whole series. I enjoy writing done under Mira Grant. Now, Mira Grant is a pen name for Seanan McGuire. So that's something to keep in mind. But yes, I thoroughly enjoyed this one. I don't really know what else to say about this one. There's a couple of things I liked that I have highlighted. Let me find one that I particularly liked. This is reference to the non-binary character. It says, everyone looks at the fact that I do makeup tutorials and go, ah, she's secretly a girl. And then they look at the fact that I love to tinker with cards and they go, oh, he's secretly a boy. Really, I'm just a person with diverse interests like everybody else on the planet. So you have a lot of talk about that. You do have misgendering because the non-binary person uses they, them pronouns. You do have people that are like, oh, she, her, he, him, whatever the case is. And then, of course, their friends, not referring to the non-binary person, stand up for them. So, and I liked seeing that friendship. Prompt number 21 is flower power. Flower power. Read a book with flowers on the cover. I did not get to this one. Prompt number 22 is to read like an Aries. Read a book under 250 pages. I did not get to that one. Okay, number 23, tiptoe through the tulips. Read a book with pink or yellow on the cover. If I remember, the font on the cover was yellow, or there was yellow as far as like the light coming from the buildings or houses on the cover, but I went with City Dark by Roger A. Canaff. I gave this one 3 stars. I don't have this book as this was a library book and has since been returned to the library. This is a mystery thriller. You have a dual timeline. One follows these 2 boys as they're with their mom, and basically their car runs out of gas. The mom pulls over to the side of the road and says, I'll be right back. I've got to go find help, get gas or something, and leaves the boys and basically does not come back. And so the boys are on their way, try to get to their uncle's house, and things happen. Trigger warning for sexual assault on a minor. It does not get overly graphic, but you do know it. It does not get graphic. It's basically you hear someone scream and then it's the aftermath of it. But you do know what happened and it is mentioned. So just be aware of that. So that's the past as they're trying to go through and find their uncle and find a place to live. And this is the point when they're abandoned at the side of the road. Basically, something has happened that has caused the power grid of the whole city to bust. And the city is in complete darkness. There's no there's no air as far as conditioning go, air conditioners. There's no lights. There's no power to eat food, to heat up food and cook it. So restaurants are having to just, like, whatever's been cooked, eat it because it's going to go bad. So type of a thing. So that was interesting. The main thing is, the main point of view is you're following, there's a couple of different POVs. So during the main timeline, there's a murder that takes place and you find out fairly early on that one of the children that we follow is a suspect, and he basically gets so drunk that he has what's called a blackout in his mind where he can't remember what he's done, what he said, where he's been, anything like that. So it's a complete blank on his mind, and that's part of why he's more intriguing as a suspect, because anything could have happened and he can't remember. He can't even provide an alibi because he was so blackout drunk. So there's other murders that happen and the investigation is just trying to figure out, did he really do it or is it someone else? Is he trying to be framed? And things like that. It's been a bit because I finished this earlier in the month and I'm trying to remember. One of the perspectives you're following is a lawyer, and of course you're following her perspective as she's trying to exonerate her client. And there's also an investigator that you're following at some point. It takes place in New York. And that's really all I can say with this being a mystery thriller, because there's a lot of stuff that would be considered spoilers and I don't want to spoil this for you. I gave it 3 stars. I feel like I did listen to the audiobook as well. For me, I felt like it was just a little rough around the edges as far as like how people talked. Now granted, yes, it's New York, but with the writing, I felt like I would have enjoyed the book better had I have read it only and not listened to the audiobook with it. So something to keep in mind there. It probably would have gotten more like a 3.5 to a 4-star had I only read the book. So why didn't I stop the audiobook and just read it physically? I don't know. But I should have done that, and so that's on me. So please take that 3-star rating with a grain of salt. I am positive I would have liked this had I have not read the audiobook along with reading it. So yeah, well, let's just go ahead and move on because I don't know what else to say about that book. I do not recommend the audiobook on this. I would say just read it. Just physically read it. Okay, prompt number 24, Spring Court. Read a book with fairies in it. I did not get to this prompt. So moving on to the last prompt. Prompt number 25 is Tiny Umbrellas. Drink your favorite iced beverage. My favorite drink that's iced, because I hate it when it's warm, is a Diet Coke. That's what I had. So that prompt is completed. I actually had a couple of Diet Cokes throughout the month. So those are all the prompts. I completed a fair amount of them, so I'm pretty good with how much I completed for this readathon, which was Spring into Reading-Athon. So again, I'll try and find the Discord channel, and I'll see if I can link that in the description box, so that if you're interested in more of what readathons that this group will do, then you can definitely check it out as well. So I had a good time with it. I thought it was good, and I thought the prompts are very cleverly written and done. So I enjoyed it, and let me know if you participated in this, and just talk to me in the comments section below. And until next time, stay true to yourself and enjoy a good book, and I'll talk to you later.